of your Excel worksheet. So I've gone in and selected a variety of values. And down here, it's giving me some of those statistics about those numbers. It's giving me the average of those numbers, the count of numbers I've selected, the minimum, the maximum, and the sum. Sometimes I just need a quick calculation, a quick average, a quick total. Instead of creating a formula to give me that value, I can just go ahead and select those values and get the quick number. How many of you have used this area before, or have noticed this area if you've selected values before? Okay, Michael. It's similar to what we saw with that filtering, and it tells you how many that are selected. And it can be really helpful. Now you can edit by right-clicking in that area what values show up. So depending on what I'm looking for, I might have minimum and maximum. Sometimes I won't, but I always have average, count, and sum on. Because if I'm ever looking for numbers, that's usually, I'm looking usually for one of those three. And you can even select by clicking on a cell and then clicking on the control key different values that are not even next to each other. So I've selected these separate by values, and it's given me the sum and average. So that's really handy for quick calculations. Exactly. Especially if I only need it for one. The next item that I wanted to show you is called freeze panes. This is a really helpful item, especially as you're using larger and larger and larger files. What you'll notice, especially if you're using files that have similar types of values, as you're looking at files and cells and columns over a long period of time, you might forget what type of value is in a column. So this happened a lot when I was working with payrolls and salaries. You'd have lots of values that are just amounts of money, and some of those are deductions and hour salary per hour and totals and 401k contributions and insurance contributions. You have column after column after column after column of all these just numbers. If you don't have that heading to tell you what's in each column, you could very easily get lost. And that's where the freeze panes comes in handy. Now if you go to the View tab and go to the Freeze Panes drop-down, there are a variety of different freeze panes options. We've got Freeze Top Row, which just holds the top row frozen or steady. You've got the Freeze the First Column, which holds the first column frozen or steady. and you've got the other one. Let's take a look at one so you can actually see why it's helpful. If you freeze the top row here, as you scroll down, that top row stays frozen or steady. So you'll always know what your column header is. Instead of having to remember, okay, column C is my salary, column D is position, the freeze panes keeps that in place. Makes it much easier and less room for error. Now to undo freeze panes, you'll go to the freeze panes dropdown and you have unfreeze. Now the freeze first column behaves very similarly, except that it freezes just that first column. The other way that I use it is this top one, which is called freeze panes. And what that does is, depending on the cell that you select, it will freeze the row above and the column to the left. So I selected cell C2, it will freeze row 1 and starting at column B. So as I scroll down, my column headers stay there. And as I scroll over, the team and player stay. So as you add more and more columns, you can scroll over and still have that team and player information. Any questions about the freeze panes option? Has anybody here used that before? Jesse, have you found it useful? The final item that I wanted to kind of review for tonight is the if function. The if function is a really handy item that I've begun to use more and more within my work. Oftentimes the way I'll use it is to recode information within an Excel spreadsheet. So the if function, it seems very basic on its face, but it can be very, very powerful, especially how it's used. So what the if function does, it allows you to ask a simple true and false question. If the question is true, then it will produce one outcome. If it's false, it will produce another outcome. So the example we're going to use here is if we wanted to recode all of the positions to be either to say if the player is a pitcher, yes or no. So let's go ahead and develop it using the if function. Instead of having to manually go in and select if the player is a pitcher or not, we can use this formula to create it. So the formula has these three main components. So it has the logical test. If it's true, produce this outcome. If it's false, produce this outcome. So we're going to reference the value in this cell here and test if it equals picture. So the value there equals picture. If it's true, we want it to read yes. If it's false, you want it to read no. We'll click OK. And now we've coded this one. But we have 380 more to go. Now in Unit 1, we looked at the autofill feature, where we selected the cell, and you hovered over the lower right-hand corner, you click and hold, and you drag all the way down. Now for us, we need to drag it through 380 other values. But there's another faster way to do it. If you hover over the lower right-hand corner and quickly double-click with your mouse, it will populate the autofill all the way to the bottom of your table. So instead of having to drag it through and down all the way to the bottom, all you got to do is double click. Now, I didn't learn this until someone saw me dragging the autofill through thousands of rows. They said, oh, you never knew this trick. Double click on it, and it has saved me probably days of just dragging it through. Because sometimes I'm working with spreadsheets that have hundreds of thousands of rows. Now, I never dragged my formulas through all rows. I was working with much smaller spreadsheets. But I can only imagine how frustrating it would be trying to drag it through hundreds of thousands of rows. So now this function here, this if function, this question, is very specific, and the text has to match exactly. So we can see that all of these players that have picture are coded as yes, and everybody else is coded as no. Even if there's an extra space at the end, it no longer matches the text exactly. So these values look the same, but there's a trailing space that we can't necessarily see as easily. So that's where that if function gets a little tricky, and you need to be very careful with how you've selected it and how you've set it up. Any questions about this if function? Alrighty. Now, you can begin to expand and expand upon the if function. So suppose we wanted to create another column that gave the players raises. And for every player that was a catcher, they got a 15% raise. And every other player got a 10% raise. We can use the if function to do all of those calculations for us. So we can set up our logical test if the position equals catcher. we want to multiply our salary times 0.15, and for everybody else, multiply our salary times 0.10, or 10%. Go ahead and change that to there. We can use our drop down to autofill it. And we've got our raises all calculated. Because it's based off of one criteria, we're able to use our if function to perform all of those calculations. And you can do if statements within if statements within if statements, and begin to make them more and more and more complex. Hopefully, this review over the if function was a helpful review. And I want to just take the last few minutes of tonight's chat to give a few different housekeeping items. One, next week we're going to have 2 separate office hours where I'll be available for any questions. We'll have an office hour on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central, and we'll have an office hour next Tuesday during our regularly scheduled live chat time. So